Hello everybody and welcome back to the F1 2021 Cult Career Mode with me, Dan, and my co-commentator Nick. And graphics as always provided by Matt Amos and Lom1138. We come to round 9 in Britain for our home Grand Prix today at Silverstone. Of course, we are now over halfway through the season, so we've got to play a bit of catching up, improve our performances for the remaining races. But of course, the big surprise of today's race, there has been a massive shake-up, massive upgrades for both of the cars that we have. We'll see what those are in just a moment. In the meantime though, don't forget to like this video, hit that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell so you know when the next race is updated. And of course, don't forget to comment down below what your highlight of the race has been as we get on to the starting grid for the British Grand Prix. And on the front row, it's the two Brit Red Bull drivers of Lando Norris and George Russell. Good qualifying for them as always. Then it's Daniel Ricciardo and Lewis Hamilton, the home favourite in the Mercedes. Then we've got Carlos Sainz in the McLaren and Radiant Slothz in the Ferrari, the massively upgraded Alfa Romeo. Then it's Sergio Perez in the Alpine and the other McLaren of Guan Yu Zhou in 8th. Then we've got the other Ferrari of Justin Freshbot promoted from Haas. He's alongside Pierre Gasly. Then it's back to Max Verstappen and Nicholas Latifi outside the top 10 by just a fraction. Then we've got the two Aston Martins of Lance Stroll and Antonio Giovinazzi at their home Grand Prix for the team. Then it's Valtteri Bottas and Nikita Mazepin sitting P15 and 16. Then we have Charles Leclerc, the new Haas driver, demoted from Ferrari, and Esteban Ocon with an engine penalty. And on the back row, we've got Mick Schumacher and the return of Robert Schwartzman. We'll catch you in the race. The Britain Grand Prix. I hit play too quickly. Radiant Slothz and Justin Freshbot with massive car upgrades for the start of the Grand Prix at their home race.
Who's going to win? It's side-by-side for the Red Bulls.
Justin Freshbot falls off the road.
Looking to have a crash.
Radiant Slothz
probably does.
He lost a place to Sergio Perez there. Everyone else ahead following pretty sensibly. Justin Freshbot also losing a place to a McLaren. Radiant Slothz back into P6 around the outside of Sergio Perez. He's watching the fight between Carlos Sainz and Lewis Hamilton. They go side by side. And they've gone wide. Radiant Slothz trying to make the most of it. And unfortunately, his Ferrari is just incredibly slow and he can't do anything about it. Maybe down in towards Cops. Justin Freshbot looking around the back of the other McLaren. And somehow Pierre Gasly just sitting in the middle of all this as well. Unbelievable from the Frenchman. As we come on to the
with a massive track extend.
Come on to the Wellington Straight. Side by side,
we see a
Zhou
overtake from Justin Freshbot. He thinks better of it. He knows there'll be an opportunity if these two sit side by side through this section.
Yeah, they are very in the way, and Pierre Gasly is not given any space to Guan Yu Zhou. Justin Freshbot has to go off the track. Evasive action required. We'll go back and look on the start. This was Radiant Slothz being overtaken by Sergio Perez into turn 1.
That seems to be tradition. Radiant Slothz loses places at the start of a race.
A fairly clean getaway for the Brazilian driver.
Almost rear ends the Alpine, but we'll ignore that.
Hooks it around the outside, touches the grass just to destroy the gardener's work, and retakes the position. And this was the rundown up the back of Carlos Sainz and Lewis Hamilton. And he's gonna have a look here, and Sainz thinks about closing the door, but the Ferrari does not have the straight line speed to even think about it. Meanwhile, slightly further back down the grid, this is Justin Freshbot watching the action unfold on the gravel. Massive understeer.
That car not turning in as much as he wants. He looks down the inside of the McLaren, who squeezes him, but he hits the apex. He loses a place to a Williams. That's embarrassing. Gets it back.
Max Verstappen there, nearly taking some glory away. We rejoin the action.
Wide again.
Just in front of the Ferrari. Just overtaken Guan Yu Zhou. We'll have to see that on board in just a moment, as we saw none of the action whatsoever. And now he's chasing down Pierre Gasly.
Sparks flying. Justin Freshpot can barely see.
He's been
due
blinded.
to the sparks on the back of that Alpha Tauri, which have now stopped, thankfully for him. As he comes into the castle section.
Oh, Guan Yu Zhou at the inside.
His move hits the side of the Ferrari. That's the 112th driver to crash into Justin Freshpot this season.
He's not even driving a Haas anymore. This was the overtake. Guan Yu Zhou way
Very
offline.
close there.
Nearly causes a crash.
Massive collision. Justin Freshpot, incredible driving there to avoid it. How does he do it?
Poor showmanship there from Guan Yu Zhou. Out of control. Does not deserve to be in a car of that caliber, at least for the moment. Then again, he was in a Mercedes for part of the season last time as well. Justin Freshpot up the inside of Pierre Gasly. Pierre Gasly hits the Ferrari for no reason.
All over the place. Justin Freshpot maybe has damage. There's smoke in the middle of the track. What's he going to do?
We'll have to find out whether or not there is damage. More than likely there is. As you see, Radiant Slothz under attack from Sergio Perez. Still not able to catch Carlos Sainz and any of the other faster cars because his car is slow, but not as slow as an Alfa Romeo or a Haas. As he comes down the straight, and Perez not able to keep up on this occasion. Very evenly matched cars, these two. But
will we see a battle to the end of the season between Alpine and Ferrari, or will the Ferrari team fall apart like they did last time, or like the last team that had Radiant Slothz and Justin Freshpot as teammates did? We'll have to see.
Or will the Alpine team just fall apart for no reason and Ferrari end up battling someone else in the constructors? Charles Leclerc, either way, is angry that he was let go, and he's going to have to live with that Haas for some time. Sergio Perez all over the place. Radiant Slothz shuts the door.
Radiant Slothz track extends for good measure.
A small track extend, potentially. We don't know. We didn't see the other wheel as he came around there. He coming into the final corner. No one's come into the pits just yet. George Russell leads the race, for anybody wondering. And now Sergio Perez is going to go out the inside.
Audacious move. Radiant Slothz track extends again. More cheating. Perez says, I've got to get past.
Again, alleged track extended. Sergio Perez's car was obscure in our view.
A man in a crane. It's all going on here.
There's lots of men in cranes at this circuit. Often
Perez with a good
question why George Russell has been overtaken by Lando Norris. Does this mean we've had some pit stops? Nope, they're just battling right now. Although Lando Norris is into the pits. And Radiant Slothz stays out. So Norris going with the undercut. Perez stays out. Radiant Slothz stays out. It's all happening right now. Someone else is out. I think Justin Freshpot might be coming in the background as well. George Russell pulls off to the side.
He's given up.
He's out. He has surrendered the British Grand Prix to Lando Norris. He should be coming out of the pits.
Will we see a surprise victory for Daniel Ricciardo, who currently leads the race?
Daniel Ricciardo cannot win a race. He will not win this race.
Box.
Justin Freshpot being told to box, but he's under pressure from the McLaren, who is twitching. But that Ferrari just stays ahead.
Lots of drivers on this on these tracks do like to twitch quite violently from side to side. Dangerously, you could argue. Not like this. This is safe driving. 40 miles an hour into the pit lane for the Ferrari of Justin Freshpot. There's Lando Norris ahead of him, having done his stop. And everyone else is pouring past at the moment.
The medium tyres for the Ferrari. Will he make it to the end of the race? We'll have to wait and see.
Eagle-eyed amongst you will know that they took off the soft tyres and they turned into medium tyres after the Ferrari moved.
Box.
Radiant Slothz is coming in. Sergio Perez giving him too much pressure now. Will he follow him in? No, Sergio Perez stays out. He's going to go for an overcut on Radiant Slothz. who will trundle down. Justin Freshpot, he's come out at the back of the grid behind Robert Schwartzman, quite considerably behind him.
Ahead of George Russell. That would be embarrassing if he was behind a car that had DNF, so
Costly
he's got
move
something going for him.
For the Red Bull team, having Justin Freshpot ahead of George Russell.
We'll have to see how Red Bull use the strategy here with a DNF'd car. Will they bring him in early to try and get him to F, or will he continue to DNF? We will see.
Will he go for the fastest lap? We just don't know the answers yet. It's all unfolding. Radiant Slothz was ahead of his teammate again. He will be chased down, a bit like the last season when these two went head-to-head into the final stages. He's undercut Sergio Perez, who tried to overcut him, although the gap has remained almost the same. But arguably,
now Perez on the fresher tyres.
Arguably, you could say that this is in Perez. Perez has the advantage. Carlos Sainz, 2 seconds up the road. At least he was. Carlos Sainz is moving around all over the place. We got cars in and out of the pits, which is making the leaderboard very difficult to follow. Antonio Giovinazzi's leading the Grand Prix right
what a
now.
Driver.
Incredible driver, future world champion.
Money's on him to win the driver and the constructors championship single-handedly.
Also, for those fans of Daniel Ricciardo, he has been overtaken by Lando Norris, who got the undercut on him, and he
Lando
will not
Norris
be winning
has
the
now
race.
overtaken Giovinazzi.
Giovinazzi, shit driver, not sure why he's even on the grid.
Radiant Slothz overtakes a Haas, which is not impressive. It's a Haas.
He gets past the Haas. I think the reason we're seeing this is to increase the drama, as he did, in fact, replace Charles Leclerc at Ferrari. Potentially,
And
it was
now
one of the
Perez
two of them.
Up the inside of the Haas as Radiant Sloth's track extends his way through the lap. Many corner cuts.
He's following Max Verstappen, who presumably has not come in just yet. He takes a lot of curb through there, the maximum use of the track, and we'll see how does the Ferrari hold up to the Williams. It can't.
Radiant Sloths crashes into Max Verstappen. Dreadful driving. Max Verstappen is forced to retire the car. Radiant Sloths somehow gets disgusting.
He will now chase down Carlos Sainz, who is just over a second ahead of him, so he is gaining, but only slightly. We rejoin at the end of the race. You've got half a lap to go, and he's closed the gap to 3 tenths. Lewis Hamilton will be bricking it right now. The crowd spurring him on, as they will. Well, I say they will. They won't be cheering on Radiant Sloths, but it would be a nice sport.
Ringing around the circuit for Radiant Sloths as he looks to crash into Carlos Sainz.
He's not going to get... Oh, he's going up the inside of the final few corners. There's no contact. It's incredible. He's changed his ways. Radiant Sloths gets Carlos Sainz on the brakes into the final section through the club corners. And he crosses the line. And he celebrates for the crowd. Collision. Shocking. The crowd love it. There's pieces of Ferrari all over the track. Let's look on board. This is the move on Carlos Sainz. Has him on the brakes. Carlos Sainz.
Massive contact there between Radiant Sloths and Carlos Sainz. You have to say that's deserving of a penalty.
Carlos Sainz, of course, completely closed the door. A big corner cut at the end and a track extend for Radiant Sloths
for good measure
as he lines up this move.
Huge collision.
The wheel knocking him unconscious as it flew into the cockpit. Here comes Justin Freshpot for P7, which, considering he started behind a McLaren, not bad. And he gets teleported across the line once again.
Justin Freshpot disorientated, no idea where he is, but he's finished the race.
Radiant Sloths attempting.
We didn't see a second of him driving, but a worthy driver of the day.
A controversial decision, allowing a French driver to be driver of the day at the British Grand Prix. I'm sure that the person responsible for that will be punished. Lando Norris turns his car back to white. There's Radiant Sloths Ferrari in the background with a missing wheel. and a missing front wing. It's good to know that even after that big impact, he was able to return the car back to Parc Fermé in almost one piece. And we'll come on to the podium for the celebrations. There's Daniel Ricciardo. For the first time in his career, he's not crashed on his way to the podium, or retired the car, or spun out, or just made a pit stop at a random point in the race, which would be classed as a poor strategy. Lewis Hamilton does what he always does at the British Grand Prix and celebrates on his own. And that will be the end of the British Grand Prix. So here are the final results. 2 Brits on the podium, so not a perfect result for the crowd, but Daniel Ricciardo definitely not unwelcome in second place. Just over the podium, Radiant Slothz with his last-minute pass on Carlos Sainz puts him into 4th. Then it's back to Sergio Perez, Justin Freshpot in the other Ferrari, Guan Yu Zhou, Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly. Over in the Drivers' Championship, Lando Norris's lead has extended even further over George Russell, and after that retirement, his title challenge has been severely dented. Charles Leclerc remains third in the table, but now has moved to the Haas team, so will probably lose this spot pretty quickly. He's followed by Daniel Ricciardo and Lewis Hamilton, level on points and only 1 point back to Carlos Sainz in P6. Yuki Tsunoda, the man that was fired from Ferrari, sits P7 in the table, but will likely soon drop a lot further down. Behind him, it's Sergio Perez, Esteban Ocon and Guan Yu Zhou making out the top 10. The new Ferrari drivers of Radiant Slothz and Justin Freshpot make up P14 and 15 on their climb to the top. Over in the Constructors, Red Bull are winning as always. Mercedes sit P2 and the new Ferrari drivers will try to close the gap to that second place. Behind them, McLaren sit a little way back but far ahead of Alpine. Then it's back to Williams and Aston Martin, tied on 18 points, 1 further back to AlphaTauri, and then down at the bottom of the table, the Haas and Alfa Romeo teams. We'll catch you for the next one.